Well, hello and welcome to another Defender Roundtable where we talk about hot topics. And today we're talking about code switching. It's a black thing you wouldn't understand. Well, you all would understand, but there are a lot of people that wouldn't understand. And we see it because of what happened with Kamala Harris. On the right, there's a lot of people saying that she has an accent, and they're just speaking derogatory of her Southern accent. Some have called it ghetto, and they basically say it's fake because she gets around us and she talks like us. But this is something Black people are used to, right? Let's talk about it. Terrence, what are your thoughts?
Well, see, I don't know if I should be the first person to start this off, just because, being a African American from the Midwest and a northern state, like I've been troubled sometimes by the code switching that I kind of see and deal with here because it's different. I mean, I've always felt like I'm the same in every room and every setting, and I found a place where I'm comfortable and I just try to stay there. But I do recognize them. So we don't always, I think Midwesterners and Northerners, we're not really in tune to paying attention to, when white people enter the room. So I just think that, sometimes it's a little bit different. I mean, and it might be just a regional thing.
Yep. Swad, you're a true Southerner. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm a true Southerner from Cincinnati, Ohio. But um, but yeah, code switching, I see it, I hear it all the time, and like you wrote in your article, which I thought was a great article. I mean, it ain't about being fake. It's about survival. Oftentimes the enslaved would put on smiles, literally for survival. In fact, I was reading where when folk who owned our ancestors were literally selling our ancestors up and down the river, they would beat us if we did not smile. Like if we were crying or if we were showing any kind of real human emotions, there was physical punishment for that. And so code switching was literally built into our DNA just so that we could survive from one day to the next.
It's not about being fake. I am a true Southerner. It's about being adaptable. It's about speaking in a way that allows everyone in the room to understand you. And sometimes that means switching up how you sound. Laura, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, I would agree that your article was really, really good, because it does remind me of times where I've been in a room where I've been the only Black person in the room and having to figure out if I can actually be my authentic self. But sometimes you have to remember, most people subconsciously or consciously model their behaviors after, what they see in the present. I'm not going to talk to my mom in the same way I'm going to talk to my friends. I have to
Yeah.
adapt. I have to change. When you're going for a job interview, I'm not going to talk to my friends the way I'm going to talk to my potential employer. And in this case, VP, she's talking to the voters because they're the employer. They're going to elect her as for this new role as president. And so she has to be able to talk to them on a relatable level, just like they were talking about Obama and that whole thing with the USA Men's Olympics, meeting up with the US Men Olympic team
Basketball team,
Paris.
yeah.
Yeah, and then he was dapping it up and was like, yeah, yeah. But when he went to the white folks, he was properly shaking their hands, properly shaking
Nice to
their,
meet you. How are you doing?
you know what I'm saying? So you got to read the room sometimes. This is what our people understand. And this is how he's adapting to how the white folk communicate. So it just,
And communication is a two-way street. Communication isn't just you saying something. It's not successful communication if the other person doesn't hear it.
yeah.
And so you've got to be able to speak in a way where the other person can even accept it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sorry, I also have to say, even for white people, white politicians, they do very well with exploiting their advantages. We see white politicians pulling the heartstrings of their religion evangelists. Oh, and then you see the crowd, they're like, yeah, yeah. Like, because it relates to that base. The goal is, in order for you to win, you got to tap in. And that's exactly what the VP is doing. And I don't see any wrong with that.
Yeah, you know, for me, as I said in the op-ed, is that I can go from hanging and hobnobbing with the elite and talking about, yes, that's Gregorius, and then going and hanging in the hood where I'm gonna say, girl, it's all good. And that is just a matter of adjusting to the moment and connecting to the people who understand me best. And that's all that Kamala is doing. I think this is just a situation where they're looking for something, anything to talk about, and they don't understand this.
Well, I joined the choir and thinking, I mean, I read your article and I loved it. I did it, and it gave me something to think about in a way that I'd never thought about it. But I mean, I just assume that that's kind of how politicians roll. I mean, you have to play the role. I mean, and we get white politicians who come into, our circle, and they sound a lot different than they would maybe in a wider circle. So that kind of goes both ways, and I think that's, like, to me, I thought that's how you play politics.
But it's not just politics, Terrence. It's as a former television news anchor, I couldn't get on TV talking about, girl, that you got me messed up. But I can go speak with an audience of my peers and say they got me messed up. So it's two different hats that we have to wear.
But let me ask you this. I mean, I don't think you would do that even if you were on BET News. I mean, you still would speak in a way that I think, where your intellect and intelligence all show up. I mean, and so I think that it's just, once again, reading the situation. But I mean, you can, and I think you can do that and still be your authentic self. I mean, but I think sometimes when you do it like in a personal setting where you feel like you got to switch it up, or like, I have friends, I have one friend in particular who's from here. And, like, sometimes, I mean, he was, people, you could tell when white people walked into the room, the whole tone of his voice, his demeanor, everything changed. And I would ask him oftentimes, I mean, why do you do that? Why is that necessary? Because, like I said, I just never had experienced that before.
Yeah, well, we definitely have. Black people have had to learn how to exist in environments that weren't built for us. As Aswan said, we have to find ways to communicate so that we can be heard, understood, and respected. And unfortunately, the rules of the game are different. You can have a white person talking Appalachian or country, and they're not judged with the same brush that we are. And
Yeah.
so it's been a matter of adapting.
And I don't even think it's as deep as making a conscious decision. I just think, kind of like what Laura was saying, it's almost like we have been trained to adapt to what we see in front of us. Like, no one here, I don't think we go to the extreme like you were saying, Terrence, where we see white folk walk in the room and then we like straighten up. And I don't think it's that deep, but I just think it's just so natural, and I don't think it's inauthentic. I just don't see it as inauthentic. I mean, surely you can point to some sisters or brothers where it might be over the top, but I just think it's us trying to survive.
And that is
I
the
respect
bottom
that.
line. Laura, you want to add something before we head out?
I just feel like this topic is very deep, because I had a conversation with a friend about if code switching is exclusively to Black people or minority groups, right? There's, for example, if there's someone who is white and has taken French for 6 years and happens to see Black Francophone speaking people, he's going to run up to them and be like, I'm going to speak in your language because I've learned French for 6 years and I'm going to speak it. But will those Black French speaking people be like, oh, what is he doing? Or someone who is a white person who was born and raised in the Third Ward, and he was raised around Black people, and he speaks in a way where, for lack of better term, he has the Black scent, whatever that is, right? Is he pandering to Black people? We had a whole conversation about that, because I'm like, is that code switching too? Like, what is he doing? So when he's with white people, does he speak that way too? It's so deep, very, very deep. But
yeah,
I agree.
If he's authentic, if he's authentically him, but he has the luxury of doing that. We don't, without being judged.
Yeah.
And that's where, the whole title comes from, and that it's a Black thing you wouldn't understand. Although there are people that understand it, but it really is not a issue of us being fake. It is all about us adapting and surviving. But we are out of time for this week's Defender Roundtable. I'll just sum up a code switching to say, get used to it. We're not changing who we are. We're just showing how vast, brilliant, and adaptable we can be. Thanks, guys, for an engaging conversation, and we'll see you all next time on the Defender Roundtable.